I'm here today to talk to you about how to fasten a wall bed into a wall. Might sound like a very simple thing to do, and for many of you, yes, it is, because you probably know how to fasten heavy things into a wall. But when you do fasten a wall bed, it is very important that it is good, well done, so it does not fall over when you open the front of the wall bed. Because, like this one, just one example, this is a wall bed mechanism, and you can have up to 10 springs in this one, I think, and it has a really big pulling force. This one, you have to be really strong to be able to pull the mechanism all the way out. And I think honestly, when you have a 180 double wall bed with all the springs inside, or even if you have mechanical springs like in this one, or if you have a gas spring, you can actually have the pulling force of an elephant when you have the wall bed all the way out. So it's really strong, and all that force wants to pull the wall bed over, and then of course it will fall over you if you have not fastened it good enough into the wall. So it's very important that you do fasten all wall beds with this sort of mechanism well into the wall, so they do not fall over. And I want to give you some tips about some walls. The most important thing is, with most walls, that you do find a beam in the wall. Don't have to be a wooden beam like this one. It can be a metal beam, it can be any sort of beam. But if you have a wall, try to find the beams in the wall, so you do have something steady to fasten the wall bed in. Now, with that said, for example, if you have a concrete wall or a stone wall, that's a very good wall to fasten a wall bed in. But when you fasten a wall bed in that sort of wall, that's a little bit different story. So I will tell you separately about that in the end of this video. And the most questions we get, and the most problems we also occur with customers, is when they have a plaster board wall, which is very common in modern buildings, because it's very good for fire safety and it's very good for many reasons. But to fasten heavy things in, it is really terrible. Then one very common thing that people use is this kind of expander plug that you put in the wall, which expands so it won't fall out. But this one just won't do it. This one won't hold a whole wall bed. I will show you here a short clip of what happens if you use this kind of plug and fasten a beam to it. It won't hold for anything, so it's not a good idea. And that's for plaster board walls. That's of course a very common wall, but there is one shortcut that you, for example, often have in kitchens and so on, which are made often with plaster board walls, but they should still be able to carry heavy loads like kitchen cabinets and so on. And then they normally have some sort of wooden board behind the plasterboard wall, especially there where you're supposed to be able to put the heavy cabinet. So if you have that, that's perfectly fine. Then you can use normal wooden screws or something that is suitable for that sort of wall. That will hold the wall bed just fine. And of course, if you have a wooden made of wood, completely normal wall here in Sweden at least, that's also perfectly fine. Just use regular wooden screws to fasten the wall beds in. But with that said, if you have a wooden board wall with wooden boards, you also need to make sure that the wooden wall itself won't fall over, because that can also happen when you have wooden boards that just nailed stuck into the wall. Then make sure that you don't have very short simple nails, because then of course the wooden boards will come loose, and then the whole thing will fall over anyway. So there are many things to think about. Now for the different angles and so on that you will be needing to use when you do fasten the wall bed into the wall. One that I really do like to use when we fasten wall beds here is this one with a big hole in it, because it's a very, very good simple thing. Because like I will show you in the end of this film here, that when you do adjust a wall bed, you don't normally adjust the front of the wall bed as you might think. You actually adjust the actual cabinet itself when you do adjust the gap on the sides and so on. So that's why it's very good to have this one, because when you have fastened this one like that into the wall, there is still some flex, so you can actually just loosen the screw a little bit, and then you can actually move the whole wall bed like that. So it's a very good thing if you want to be able to adjust it afterwards. And also one good thing that this with this one is that you can actually do fasten it first into the wall bed with wooden screws like that, and then you can fasten it into the wall. One other angle that we sometimes use, that we all get with many of the wall beds, especially the Germans, they love to use this one. But the disadvantage with this one, I think, is that this one has to be fastened to the wall first, and then afterwards you do fasten it to the wall bed. So you still have the flex, so you can move the wall bed a little bit because it's flexible like this one, but you still need to remove the wall bed and then put it back on. So you fasten this one into the wall and then you put the wall bed afterwards. With this one, you can actually put the wall bed first and then put this one. So I think for us it's better, but make sure, depending on what kind of wall you have, that you use many of these. If you have, for example, a 180 vertical wall bed with the pulling force of an elephant, I would say normally in the top of the wall bed you need to put at least 4 of these, and you can also put, for example, 2 in the middle and also some in the bottom. Just in the reason why I want you to put something in the bottom is not normally because it takes any weight or helps you in any kind of way to not get the wall bed over you, but as you do adjust the wall bed when you screw it stuck to the wall the first time, you don't want the wall bed to move, so you actually get a bigger crack in between the front of the wall bed and the sides of the wall bed. So to avoid that in the future, I think you also need to fasten the wall bed a little bit in the bottom of the front of the wall bed so it doesn't move. So that's one thing that I think is important. So that's the 2 different types of metal angles to fasten the wall bed with. Yes, and now some tips if you're gonna fasten a wall bed into a stone wall. It's a very good wall to have if you need to fasten a wall bed. One stone wall which is no good to fasten in though is the one that we in Sweden call klesong. I don't know what that name comes from, but it's a wall that was built during the war when Hitler used all the concrete to build Fort Europa in Germany, or in France I think it was, but it doesn't matter. But he used all the concrete there, so we did not have some concrete left here in Sweden and many other countries in Europe. We didn't have enough with concrete, so then they used what they had left over and they used that as wall instead. And it sounds very good when you knock on it. It sounds like, oh, it's a solid stone wall of some sort, but when you start drilling in it, you quite soon realize that you only have a few centimeters of stone, and then the rest of is just leftovers from what they had. And many times there is really nothing to fasten it in, and then you need to find some extra boards or something to put behind. It's a quite big job, so be careful if you have that kind of a wall. And like I said, it was during the wartime that they used that kind of wall. So if your house is from the 30s, 40s, then be careful and make sure that if you have that kind of wall. But otherwise, if you have a regular stone wall, it can be a light stone wall, or it can be a really new concrete cement wall, or a brick wall or something like that. It's all sorts. You will discover it quite quickly when you start drilling into the wall with a heavy machine. If it goes very easy to make the hole, then of course then you have a fluffy type of concrete or something, and then you have to be, of course, wary about what kinds of plugs you use when you do fasten the wall bed. If it was difficult to make the hole in the wall, then of course you can use just a regular round plug like this one. It will not spin in that hole anyway. But make sure when you do drill into the wall that you have the same number on the drill as on the plug. On every single plug that you buy in a hardware shop, there is a number on it, in this case number 10, and then should also be number 10 on the drill, so you have the same size on the drill as on the plug. Otherwise, if you make too big hole for the plug, then the plug will spin inside of the hole, and that's no good. And if it wasn't easy to make the if it was easy to make the hole in the wall, or even a bit too easy, then of course you can still have the effect that you made the hole bigger than you expected to, even if you have the right drill. And then you need to use a different plug. And this one is for light concrete walls, for example. It's a triangular shaped plug, which is very good, because then you need to hammer that into the hole, and then it will not spin around in the hole. There is also different types that you screw in, like this one. And one thing that I really want you to do, you can also do that if you use a regular round plug. It's never a bad thing to do this. Just use some extra glue in the hole when you do put the plug in. Then you are 100% sure that it will stay there forever and will not loosen. And also, when you do drill holes in the wall, make sure that you do make the hole as long as the plug. And in this case, I've put a little bit of tape on the drill, so you do not make the hole longer than you expected or want to. And the good thing with that is that you do not need to fix your neighbor's wall after you fixed your own wall, because you know that you did not drill too far into the wall. And also, one thing, when you have fastened or made all the preparations to do fasten it into the wall, screw it stuck into the hole, if you can avoid it, do not use a machine when you do fasten these screws into the wall. Just use a regular screwdriver, because you don't want to screw it too hard, because if you do screw it, then you will just have the effect that you will actually spin the plug inside of the wall instead of spinning the screw or fastening the screw. So just take it easy, screw it stuck, but not too hard. When you can feel that you have screwed it all the way, then stop. Don't screw it too much, because the only thing that will happen that the plug will loosen inside of the wall. And also, one more important thing, when you do have fastened it into the wall, do not loosen it and then screw it back in and loosen it and screw it back in, because if you do that many times, then you will actually lose the effect of the plugs in the wall, and then you don't have a steady fastening of the wall bed anymore. So try not to do that, loosen it too many times and screw it back in. Now for regulating the front and so on, when it comes to the fastening of the wall bed into the wall and so on. It's actually not the front that you adjust. There is no special screws or nothing on most wall beds for the front. So actually it's the actual wall bed, the cabinet, that you do regulate. As you see here, depending on how I push the wall bed, as now it's not fastened at all into the wall, you can actually see that the gap is shifting here on the front. So what you have to do is adjust that before you fasten it into the wall. So that is the main principle here. You do not adjust the front, because that is most of the time not possible. You do adjust the cabinet towards the gap, so that you get the right gap that you want. So if you see there, now I'm happy with the gap, and now I fasten it into the wall, and then you have the right gap on both sides. You cannot change the front, but you can change the actual cabinet and the fastening of the cabinet into the wall. That's how you adjust the wall bed.